All right. Good evening and welcome to the February 2nd, 2022 regular meeting of the Holland City Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Bird.
Present.
Vreeman.
Here.
Peters. Here. Corbin. Here. Coronado. Here. Aronshorst. Here. Hoekstra.
Here.
Raymond. Here. Mayor Box.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. We're going to start this evening, as we have for many years, first with an opening prayer this evening by Councilmember Vreeman, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd ask that you would join us if you'd like.
Let's pray together. Lord, we come to you at the end of our day, and we want to give you thanks for it and all that has taken place in it. We would now put our time before you, that in it you would grant an extra measure of wisdom and discernment, that we might honor you and that this community might thrive because of the diligence of the people around this table and room. And so make yourself known that we might follow you accordingly. And it's by your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Tim. Next item on our agenda are our consent agenda items. These are items that are considered to be fairly routine. They have been reviewed by council members as part of our council packet, and they will be enacted in one motion unless a member of the audience or a member of council asks to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed in its regular order on our regular agenda. But before I ask if anyone would like to do that, Kathy, would you please review the consent agenda for us?
Item 4B, approval of minutes, January 19th regular meeting, January 22, council advance, and January 22, 2022 study session. Item 4C, oaths of office. 4D, city clerk, claim filed against the city. 4E, board of review, set hours and salary for 2022. 4F, finance, December financial reports. 4G, Public Safety Services, Fire Operations. Approval of listing and marketing agreement with Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus. 4H, Management and Administrative Services, Fiscal Year 2022 Strategic Plan and Business Plan, Quarterly Progress Update. 4I, Management and Administrative Services, Human Resources, Amendments to the Priority Health Medical Plan.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Is there any member of the public who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none, is there any member of council that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none there either, what is the pleasure of council in regard to the consent agenda?
Move approved.
Moved by Hoekstra, is there support?
Support.
Support by Aronshorst. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Bird.
Yes.
Vreeman.
Yes.
Peters. Yes. Corbin. Yes. Coronado. Yes. Aronshorst.
Yes.
Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Next item on our agenda is public comment. Under the Open Meetings Act of the State of Michigan, we provide for a public comment period at every one of our city council meetings and every one of our board and commission meetings. We provide 5 minutes during our regular meetings. You'll see that there are 3 lights on the dais in front of me. Our very able city manager will be keeping track of the time, and as long as the light's green, you're doing well on time. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left. And when the light turns red, your time has expired, and we are very strict about that. This is an opportunity for you to speak to us. We don't engage in conversation or debate at this time. We don't answer questions at this time, but you can speak to council on any item that you would like to, other than items that have a public hearing scheduled for them at this meeting. So having said that, is there any member of the public who would like to address council at this time? If so, please come forward. And would you please state your name and tell us if you're a resident of the city of Holland?
Ann Hendrickson, Zealand.
All right, thank you.
This is Black History Month, so I would like to give a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King and his original intent of the civil rights movement. I did watch Martin Luther King event in our Civic Center January 17th. I appreciate the guest speaker and his reference to the Bible emphasizing Joel 2:28. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your old men will have dreams, and your young men will have visions. He honored Dr. King's future hope for our nation. Dr. King preached eloquently from the Holy Word. I will be reading excerpts from Dr. King's message, Love Your Enemies, 1957. Now for Dr. King's message. So I want to turn my attention to this subject, love your enemies. It is so basic to me because it is part of my basic philosophical and theological orientation, the whole idea of love, the philosophy of love. In the 5th chapter of the Gospel as recorded by St. Matthew, as we read these very arresting words flowing from the lips of our Lord and Master, you have heard this as it has been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you, that you may be children of your Father which is in heaven. The words of this text glitter in our eyes with new urgency. This command is an absolute necessity for the survival of our civilization. Yes, it is love that will save our world. Love even our enemies. The way you love your enemies is this. When the opportunity presents itself for you to defeat your enemy, that is the time you must not do it. There will come a time when the person that hates you the most, the person that misused you the most, the person who spread false rumors about you the most, there will come a time when you will have an opportunity to defeat that person. It might be in terms of a recommendation for a job. It might be in terms of helping that person to make some move of life. That is the time you must not do it. That is the meaning of love. Love is creative, understanding goodwill for all men. It is a refusal to defeat any individual. When you rise to the level of love, it is great beauty and power. You seek only to defeat systems, individuals who happen to be caught up in that system you love, but you seek to defeat the system of hate and division. I think the reason we should love our enemies, and that is the very center of Jesus' thinking in this, that hate for hate only intensifies the existence of hate and evil in the universe. If I hit you and you hit me and I hit you back and go on, you see that goes on infinitum. It never ends. Some time ago, my brother and I were driving one evening in Chattanooga, Tennessee from Atlanta. He was driving the car. For some reason, the drivers were very discourteous that night. They didn't dim their lights. Hardly any driver that passed us by dimmed his lights. And my brother said in a tone of anger, I know what I'm going to do. The next car that comes along here and refuses to dim the lights, I'm going to fail to dim mine and pour them on in greater power. I looked at him right quick and said, oh no, don't do that. There'd be too much light on this highway, and it will end up in a mutual destruction for all. Somebody's got to have some sense on this highway. Someone must have the sense enough to dim the lights, and that is trouble. That is the trouble, isn't it? That all civilizations of the world move up the highway of history. So many civilizations, having looked at another civilization that refused to dim the lights of hate, then they conclude to refuse to dim theirs, and the whole of civilization plunges into the abyss of destruction. Someone must have sense. Force begets force. Hate begets hate. Toughness begets toughness. Somebody must have the sense enough and morality enough to cut off the chain of hate and disrespect. And you do that by love. Willfully choose to turn on the dim and the beautiful power lights of love in this world. Someone must have the sense. And
Mr. Mayor, that's 5 minutes.
I will continue this next week.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda, special order of the day, public hearings, Renaissance Zone, LG Energy Solutions. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council, guests. I hear that it's snowing pretty hard out there, so glad that you're all able to get here safely. I'm going to take this off. So I'm going to provide an introduction to this matter, and at the end of that, I will also introduce to you all representatives from LG Energy Solutions that are with us tonight. And then I would recommend then Mayor can open the public hearing. So first, just a little context and timeline. This was council first set the public hearing for this date as required by law at your meeting on January 19. Last week, Wednesday, we had a pretty far-reaching presentation by many staff members and Lakeshore Advantage and certainly the Holland Board of Public Works as a part of our larger organization on this project from a larger sense. Various components involved with that. Tonight, just a reminder, this is a public hearing and specifically consideration on the request for a Renaissance zone. The project itself, broad strokes, this is a collection of buildings that total approximately 1.4 million square feet. It's estimated that it is a total investment of $1.7 billion, and that the total number of jobs would total 1,200. And this obviously is a project that would take many years to plan and begin and complete. And the job projections then are also obviously heavy towards when the project is actually done. This is, as we take a look at the building layout, this is actually phase 2 of an initial project and Renaissance zone. And if you remember from the study session last week, a annexation of property from Fillmore Township, an approval of a larger site plan, the purchase by the prior entity that's now recognizes LG Energy Solutions to assemble property at this site. And again, this is now phase 2 of a project that was in all of the documentation and discussed back in 2010. As I said, we have a lot of the presenters from last week, and all of the slides that they used last week are here. So as we go through this evening, if there's questions that you have of any of those presenters, certainly those are prepared so they can speak from those slides once again. But tonight, again, we are focusing on the action specifically to approve the REN zone for a term not to exceed 20 years. And a REN zone would exempt the company from paying non-debt local property taxes. And I think that's important to just note the non-debt local taxes would be while schools operating millages now with changes in Proposal A, they get most of their operating funding from per pupil funding. But in this case, Hamilton Schools does have various debts in place to pay for those facilities. And in this case, the REN zone does not exempt the company from paying that as one example of debt taxes. We did have information, and Holland Board of Public Works General Manager Dave Koster is here, and described to you last week, where I think not only the attraction of this investment in this company to Holland because of our local Board of Public Works and the electricity that they can produce, but also because we have that, there is a dividend payment that comes back because of the amount of electricity that they're purchasing. So while we're missing out on contributing in this proposal that's before you tonight an amount of local property taxes, we do know also that there is a dividend payment that comes back through the electricity that they purchase that is still at extremely competitive rates when compared to your other utility providers in the state. That helps basically absolutely bring back value to the city in paying for the services that we provide. I do want to remind everyone on the timeline that we're working on here. Tonight is February 2, where you have the public hearing and the consideration of the staff recommendation to approve this Renaissance zone. And the Renaissance zone then would jump forward to, it's not finally approved until the state of Michigan, in what's called the Michigan Strategic Fund, considers that, and they require local action and approval on a Renaissance zone before they would consider it themselves for final adoption. At that stage also, there are a collection of other incentive packages, primarily from the state, to support this project. And certainly last time at the study session, we talked about our appreciation that one of those very important incentive packages is a workforce housing. Ryan Kilpatrick described it again last week as gap financing to support housing in this area that we're already identifying as a priority, but certainly a project like this would create more demand. In the next couple weeks, not directly associated with the Renaissance zone, but there certainly are other agreements that are required of LG, most specifically as it relates to the investments that the Holland Board of Public Works is making in substations, and other associated matters with stormwater and some of those types of things. And that local development agreement would first go to the Board of Public Works next Monday at their meeting, and then assuming adoption there, it would come to all of you for review, consideration, and approval on February 16. And again, that just provides another level of agreement, if you would, directly between the company, the BPW, and the city that would be necessary for this project to move forward also. With that, and certainly there will be time for more questions from council after the completion of the public hearing, I would like to introduce representatives from LG Energy Solution. First, the Michigan president, Banchul Ku, their local head of facilities and safety, Joe Morgan, and also their treasurer, Sungpil Park. And we'd like to welcome you and invite you to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me this hearing tonight. And I want to introduce our company very briefly and this project very briefly. And our company, LG Energy Solution Michigan, established in 2010 over here in Michigan. And we mainly making lithium-ion battery for electric vehicle. And actually the Michigan plant is a subsidiary of the headquarters located in South Korea. So our headquarters is the big company, and the revenue of $11 billion in year 2020 globally. So we are basically making lithium-ion battery for electric vehicle. So we are very proud about promoting kind of to advance to clean energy society. So we are very proud of that. So our project over here, we already producing the 5 gigawatt hour. That is equivalent of 50,000 electric vehicle. And by investing this $1.7 billion by 2025, we can increase the volume from 5 gigawatt hour to 25 gigawatt hour until 2024. So this is the huge investment in our LG Energy Solution. So by doing this investment, we can hire more 1,200 more kind of a good paying job over here in Holland. So this is like not only for beneficial for our company, so this is really, really beneficial to our local society, Holland City, and also this is a good opportunity for the Michigan State, I think. So thank you for consideration of including this Renaissance zone, and thank you very much. And so actually we suffering kind of hiring more people, even though we're making a lot of jobs over here. If we can hire more people, it would not be good. So please support us to hire more people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And typically, we may have some questions for you. Would you
sure.
be interested in taking questions? Any questions from council members for the applicant? Quincy?
I guess, do any of the other gentlemen, should we ask after they all speak?
That's a thank you, Quincy, for that. Are the other two gentlemen, do they have anything that they would like to say before we ask some questions?
Want to say something?
He put you on the spot.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize the importance of this exciting growth for LG, and plus the benefit it has for the local community here, not in Holland, but also in the local communities as well, that it will provide jobs for. So thank you for this consideration. We are moving with the future and supporting the automotive industry forecast and future.
Great. Thank you. Yep. All right. Any questions from council members?
I could
Yeah.
ask a question.
Nikki, go ahead.
Hi, welcome. I'm from Detroit, so this is another development of
Yes.
the automotive industry. You mentioned hiring more people,
Yes.
and it will provide jobs. And we're in kind of a quandary now. Where will you find these people who will fill the jobs? We've heard from other companies their strategies, and so I'm interested. I know it's not for a few years because you have to
right.
build.
Yeah, right. So actually, we are suffering now, and we have many kind of trial and error. We're doing that. So out of that, what I'm expecting is like our HR manager altogether try to contact more schools actually. So over here already, I think the Holland area is like already fully employed. That I'm feeling. So it's really hard to the hiring people. So our kind of one of the consideration how to kind of hire people is like try to contact more schools, like high schools, and the colleges, and all, not only Holland area, kind of all this kind of the Michigan state, try to contact more schools and try to hire more kind of just graduated people. That is one of our strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Belinda, go ahead.
Mr. Bonchul,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So we had the presentation last week, and we had a lot of concerns from the residents that live behind there.
Mm-hmm.
And just wondering, or like to know, how you plan on working with those residents that live behind there, and really are, I understand it's great for Michigan, great for Holland, the city of Holland, but we have several residents that live there, and they're concerned about the noise, the air pollution, the water, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm just wondering where you and your company have decided how to work with those individuals that live there. I think there may be 6 to a few, I'm not sure of the number, but they had some concerns. So of course we want everybody to win.
Yes.
It'll be a win-win for everyone
Yes.
involved, and especially these residents, since that is their largest asset. So as a concerned citizen, knowing myself, my residence is my number one asset and investment. So how do you plan on addressing those or working with those individuals, if you may expound,
Yeah,
please?
okay. So I have the facility manager here, so I think you better answer.
We've had some discussions already about supporting any meetings that take place with planning for around the facility. So we are fully dedicated to supporting those meetings and partnering with the local neighbors to ensure that it is a win-win situation all around.
And have those meetings started? Are they, I understand city was going to mediate perhaps, the department in that. I don't remember his name, but.
Yeah, again, so that process really runs mainly after this. The rent zone is what's before us tonight. So Steve Peterson and Mark Vanderplug were here last week and are going through the site plan process right now, and have been certainly in contact with several residents, have been in contact with the company, and will be facilitating opportunities for the residents to come in. And certainly planning staff is their primary point of contact, but have received cooperation certainly from LG Chem to be LG Energy Solutions to be part of those meetings.
Well, thank you so much. So I'm maybe a little bit premature, but just those were some of the concerns that came up last week, and we want to make sure that we are being proactive for those residents too. So thank you. I'm very excited about the partnership, the economic growth that will be help city, the state of Michigan, to continue to be very upfront and competitive for all those involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
I just really have words of affirmation for what you're doing. I have a dear friend, and he is an expat from Azerbaijan working for you, and you have treated him very, very well and accommodated him in his growth, in his career, and his family. And so thank you, and I look forward to that going forward with 1,200 more people in our area. So thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions from council members? Yeah, Lynn? Nope. Oh, Quincy. Yep, she's just directing it at you. Yes.
Thank you. So, good evening, welcome. I'm gonna make a comment, then I have some questions. I know when this kicked off, I remember President Obama coming here and having the groundbreaking ceremony. Ensuing after that, there was a lag in the news for some negative publicity, I guess, where it was not predicted to have a lull in business. Here we are today, and we're looking at an expansion. So good foresight, good planning, and this is an exciting opportunity for Holland. We have in our plans in the past is to grow some of the economics in our community, and this helps in that area. So I'm excited about that. One of the things that Belinda brought up is speaking with the individuals who are landowners in the area. We have some people who have been landowners since you guys got on board, even before in that location. And then there's some who just recently bought houses there who may not have known what was going on. So I'm going to ask you to listen to them, take them seriously, and work with them the very, very best that you can. We sit on this board here to represent the people of Holland, and that's what we That's what we want to do to the very best of our ability. And by doing that, I'm asking you personally to talk to them and to hear them out, and to, if there's disagreement, come to a conclusion. We want win-win, right?
Definitely.
We don't want any black eyes on this. We started out, like I said, it had a black eye on it. We've overcome that. But I think we can move forward and not have any of that. My first question is to City Manager. So on the 7th, this goes before DPW, and if it passes, then it comes to council, correct?
Not this. So the only
I'm
item
sorry,
before you tonight is the Ren Zone. Not
Yes.
the site plan, not the local development agreement. It's the local development agreement that goes before the Board of Public Works next Monday. And then the following Wednesday, 2 weeks from tonight, would come before you, is the proposed timeline.
Yes, that's what I meant. My apologies.
Yep.
So if that does not pass on the 7th, how do we proceed?
So there's gonna be a lot of moving parts to all of this, and they all don't have to fall exactly together. I'm gonna look at Ron also to make sure that if I get anything wrong. I would say the Ren Zone and the consideration, because it's such a large piece of the deal, really is leading this process. Because if the Ren Zone does not get approved either here or the state, I'd let other people speak to that, but I would dare say the rest of it doesn't matter. The local development agreement has some specifics in it that, you know, it's kind of that chicken and egg type thing, Quincy, right? Where we would then move forward with that. There's elements in that if there wouldn't be agreement on the local development agreement, they might have a Ren Zone in place, for example, and I'm theorizing a little bit here. But then when they came back and said, okay, we want to start building, we would say, you can't start building until we have this local development agreement in place. So they're related. They're not directly like one is dependent on the other in a direct way. But what I would say is, if one of those items doesn't get approved, the overall project is not going to move forward either. So there's what I would call protection in place to make sure that all of these elements need to fall into place before the project would actually execute.
Okay, great, thank you. This doesn't have anything to do with the Renaissance or what we're voting on today, but a couple of questions. One question is, do you guys have any other production locations in the U.S.?
Actually, we have joint venture with GM. So there is another facility in Ohio, joint venture, but solely owned by Energy Solution. This is the only location.
Okay. So looking forward, and I don't think we covered this, I don't know if it was or not, but is there plans beyond this for expansion in Holland?
As far as I know, currently this is the only plan for expansion. So for the kind of a longer plan, I don't have that information about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn? Lynn, Mike,
Sorry.
yep.
I was wondering if you could give us some background on why the original policy indicated 15 years and why LG Energy Solutions is asking for 20? Because I understand we kind of have to make a change there. So I just wanted to get a little bit more background on that.
Yeah, so with that, I'm also going to ask perhaps Jennifer Owens to help me pinch hit on this or stand in the gap if I get this wrong. So I wasn't here in 2010. My understanding, though, and going back and looking through the documents and the process at that point, is that the state only offered and considered 15-year tax abatements at that point. So I think I correctly have presented that the city policy was really tied to the state policy, which talked about 15-year rent zones at that point in time. Since then, I think not only in other projects in the state, but certainly with this one, the negotiations of the project, of which the state led those negotiations, is where the state presented to us, because that's kind of the way it worked along with LG, that it would be a 20-year rent zone. So that is then what was presented to us and then comes before you this evening. Jennifer, did I get that right?
Mostly right, Keith. The one.
You know what?
Mostly.
It's luckily you weren't at the microphone when you said that.
So this is actually a Michigan Strategic Fund Board designated Renaissance zone, which allows a max of up to 20 years. The other Renaissance zone that LG has, it is an alternative energy Renaissance zone. The statute allows for a maximum of 15 years. So there are several different Renaissance zone tools. This is the granddaddy, the biggest, longest amount of years, and this project is very important. And so the state, and hopefully with the city's partnership, thought it made sense to offer the maximum that Renaissance zone allowed.
Any other questions from council?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Nikki.
Yes, and I know you are people of honor, but let's say, what recourse do we have if something in our agreement is not honored? If you don't provide 1,200 jobs, if you don't do the environmental work, if you don't do, one part of the agreement is not followed through on, what kind of...
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, so specifically with rent zone, because that's what we're looking at tonight, the rent zone, there are responsibilities of the company to do reporting annually to the state, which are then audited through that process. And then if at any point those commitments are not met, not only could the benefit be eliminated at that point in time, but there are also possibilities of, in the business you'd call it a clawback, where basically they would have to reimburse those. So there are definitely not only clauses, but also processes to support needing to meet those metrics.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this time from council? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I will now open the public hearing. The rules apply to the public hearing. They're very similar to our public comment rules. We limit time to 5 minutes. There are still the 3 lights in front. The green light, which means you're doing well on time. The yellow light means you have 1 minute. And when the red light comes on, your time has expired. You can speak only to this particular subject matter. And again, we do not engage in discussion at this time. We don't answer questions directly at this time, but it's your opportunity to speak to council in regard to this particular item. So having said that, is there anyone who would like to address council in regard to this item? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the Renaissance Zone?
Motion to accept item 7A, Renaissance Zone LG Energy Solution, to adopt the resolution as presented.
Moved by Corbin. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Discussion from council members. I guess I'm the only one.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I'm glad that you're sitting down now, because if I had spoken earlier, I would have felt bad that you were standing up. So, Mr. Koo and Morgan and Park, thank you very much for being here tonight. It's an honor to have you here. I don't think there are very many people who would dispute the value and benefit of this proposal. The impact that it will have from many different angles is huge. And even the homeowners that border your property that I've spoken to acknowledge the importance of this to our community. You've heard several times tonight people refer to the concerns that your neighbors have around how your project's going to affect their property and their lives and their livelihood. And hopefully, I'm hoping that you hear that. And I want to frame it a little bit like this. In Holland, we have a tradition. It's more implied than it is written out in policy, but it is when we do a project as a municipality, we say we like to do it right. That means not only building it properly, but also understanding the impact of that project and mitigating any detrimental effects that might be there. And I would ask you, along with my other colleagues, to bear that in mind as you navigate all of the crazy things that you're going to have to go through to bring this project to fruition. And I feel your pain. Hopefully, all of the boards that you have to appear in front of, we will be the most enjoyable. But I hope that you will understand that tradition that we have of doing things the correct way. And even if, I mean, the numbers of those folks who have concerns are very small compared to the enormity of this project. But I would ask you to bear that tradition in mind, that that you can do this project and do it correctly, which also means understanding the situation of those folks who are going to be your neighbors and mitigate any detrimental effects that there might be. And I have great confidence that you'll do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Any other comments, discussion from council members? I want to thank our city staff. I want to thank the Board of Public Works, Lakeshore Advantage, Housing Next, representatives from the state, LG Energy Solutions, for working so diligently for so many months to bring us to this point, this kind of first decision point for this council. As you've heard tonight and last Wednesday night, this is not a simple decision. It's got a lot of moving parts and interconnected issues. It's a complex process, and it's been a long time in the making, and there are a lot of steps to go yet after tonight. The opportunity for a $1.7 billion investment doesn't just happen. A proposal like this coming to our doorstep, I believe, is the result of many good decisions and a lot of hard work over many, many years by this council, other city leaders, and frankly, the people of Holland. It's our job as city council to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of our residents. But it's also to do what we can to provide a great environment for our residents to live, work, and play. And as a city, we've worked really hard to create a community and environment that attracts businesses and people alike. We were recently named the small town in Michigan with the best quality of life. It's one of many, many awards and accolades we've received over the years. But awards are just part of what attracts business here. There are many, many reasons that investment gets drawn to Holland. We have an incredible downtown, including a world-renowned snowmelt system. We've got great parks and recreation facilities. We've got well-maintained roads and infrastructure. We've got a locally owned power plant capable of supplying reliable and efficient energy that is essential for this type of growth. We've got stellar police and fire departments. We've got an incredible business-friendly environment, great nonprofit organizations. The list goes on and on. We've worked hard to make this community an incredible place to live, work, and play, and to maximize livability for all of our residents. In just the last 2 years, we passed a comprehensive anti-discrimination ordinance welcoming and protecting the rights of those who live and visit here, and stating clearly and unequivocally that we celebrate the value of everyone who calls Holland home. We rewrote and modernized our planning and zoning ordinance, opening our community to forward-thinking and creative development opportunities. And I expect that some of the new options that we've put on the table will be used to provide housing for the 1,200 workers that are going to be coming to this plant if this goes through. And we adopted forward-thinking recommendations to update our community energy plan, proving that we are committed to a sustainable future. All of these things directly or indirectly affect decisions to invest in our community. In addition, we've got multiple transformational projects in the works for our city that are, in addition to all of the things that just happened, to keep our city clean, safe, beautiful, and operating efficiently. We're looking at an even brighter future ahead as we work toward expanding our fiber broadband network throughout the city, waterfront Holland development, updated fire stations, a new public recreation center, an outdoor ice rink at Window on the Waterfront, expansion of our downtown through the extension of College Avenue, and completion of our anaerobic digester. This council, this city, and those who came before us created the environment that brought this investment to our door. But just because an opportunity is available, it doesn't mean that we have the capacity to take advantage of it. If I were offered the job of a starting quarterback in the Super Bowl, that would be an incredible opportunity. But it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that if I accepted it, I would fail miserably. And I would probably be worse off when I started the game. Do we as a community have the capacity to take advantage of this opportunity? Last week we heard from our staff, the Board of Public Works, Lakeshore Advantage, and Housing Next that we do. We already have a city-owned electric power utility with the capacity to produce the needed electricity. The city already has the roads and other infrastructure needed to support the additional traffic and the capacity to provide the additional services needed to support the plant and its employees. Our existing automotive suppliers have the ability to grow and change to meet the need of a new type of automobile, and we stand ready to welcome other businesses to help us transition to electric vehicle production. And our nonprofit and for-profit housing developers have the capacity to produce the homes needed for our new residents. We have the opportunity before us. We have the capacity and the ability to take advantage of it. In my mind, there's just one more question. Is it worth it? Tonight, we as a council have to decide if the potential benefit to the community outweighs the potential revenue that we would be foregoing. If we vote no, the investment won't likely happen. The chance is almost zero. So either way we go with this, there isn't likely going to be an increase in the tax revenue from this parcel for the next 20 years. To paraphrase our city manager, do we want to get part of something or all of nothing? If we vote yes, we would likely be foregoing some revenue from the sale of excess electricity on the open market. But LG will be purchasing that power to be used locally. The city, through the BPW, owns the power plant, and we will receive additional revenue through the sale of the electricity to LG. And there will be other investment in the community spurred by the LG expansion. Other businesses will come to Holland, and local businesses will expand and adapt to support the LG plant and its employees. That additional investment will create additional property tax revenue for the city. And then there are the wages that are to be paid to the new LG employees. 1,200 new jobs with an average wage of approximately $50,000 per year. Now, that won't be direct tax revenue to the city to help make up for our increased costs, but there will be a multiplier effect as that $60 million in wages paid to the new LG employees each year are spent in our community. Those wages will be spent on housing, groceries, services, dining, and entertainment throughout the community. And the businesses where those dollars are spent will use those dollars to pay their own employees, see more success, and make additional investments in the community. By voting yes, we will be abating direct tax revenue to the city, but the community will see economic prosperity in return. This is not a simple decision, it's complex. There are a lot of things for us to take into consideration. But just because something is complex doesn't mean that it has to be difficult. Based on what I've learned, the decision is complex, but in my mind, easy. There's an incredible opportunity before us. We have the capacity and ability to take advantage of the opportunity. By my very rough calculations, we're foregoing about $3 million per year in lost revenue from excess electricity sales on the open market and abated tax dollars for the next 20 years. in exchange for $60 million of wages, plus the multiplier effect of every wage dollar spent, plus the electricity sales to LG, plus the growth of second and third tier suppliers to the LG plant, plus the additional housing in the community. There are a lot of overlapping and complex issues, but in my mind, the decision is easy. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Vreeman,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Coronado,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Next item on the agenda, written petitions and communications. In addition to receiving people publicly at our meetings for public comment, we do allow people to send emails to council as well. We have a special email address for that. That is publiccomment@cityofholland.com. We collect those in the 2 weeks between our regular meetings, and they are read by council members. We do not read them publicly here at our meetings, but we do accept them into the record. And we do have 2 e-comments, and I would ask council to accept those into the record. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Byrd, is there support? Support by Vreeman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, item 10, adoption of ordinances. Mr. Van Beek, I'm going to let you and staff members decide how they want to approach each of these items.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We have 5 ordinances before you this evening, and Steve Peterson is excited to continue to come before you and work through all of these. Steve, even if that's not true, it is, right?
It is.
So the first thing before you is actually a rezoning request, and Steve, why don't, here, I'll just let you click through.
Okay.
And you can introduce and take this one away, please.
Thank you. Yes, just a couple rezonings before we get into the Udo presentation tonight. So this first rezoning is on 16th Street. This is for a nursing home facility. As you can see, I kind of highlighted the property that is being developed. In the orange area is our high-density residential zoning district. That zoning map picture there on the right-hand side of the screen. In order to accommodate their stormwater on the site, to really make sure that water went off to the Hope Avenue storm sewer system rather than have it go north through the neighborhood, our engineer really required them to make some changes to their design. Long story short, in order to accommodate those, they need to acquire that piece of property in that sort of pink zoning district area, the PUD district, and combine it into their project. So what's in front of you tonight is the rezoning of that PUD portion of that property back to HDR so they can add it to their development. The PUD property is vacant. If you're familiar with that area, you kind of know that that area is a little bit low, wet area. So that's what they are going to use for their stormwater detention system for the project. It's about an acre of property that would be rezoned to HDR. So Planning Commission held their public hearing. I don't think we got any comments there. I did not get any feedback as well from the public notice. And Planning Commission recommended unanimously that that property be rezoned to HDR so they can add it to the project. Planning Commission has approved the site plan already, has done all that work. They did put a condition on it that all of that was contingent on City Council approving the rezoning.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Any questions from council members? Well explained. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the pleasure of council in regarding to the rezoning request for 887 East 16th Street?
Move to approve the zoning change.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Hoekstra. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Peters,
Yes.
Corbin, Coronado,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Vreeman,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Mr. Van Beek, I believe that we're next at the rezoning request for 795 East 24th Street.
Yes, and Mr. Peterson is back up at the podium. I guess when you have development and things happening, sometimes you get to rezone things. That's a professional opinion.
That sounds good. That sounds good. And sometimes you have to make some corrections. So this one, as you could tell from the agenda, is actually initiated by the city. So this is the rezoning of a small piece of property, 24th and Waverly. So we've already approved this project. Some of it you might remember from some of your annual reports that some of the workforce housing in this on this project has already been approved. What we noticed when we went to do some of the lot split work is after we approved this project, and then we approved Udo, we didn't follow the right line. So we actually ended up essentially rezoning part of the property back to this, in that blue, that GMU district. So what we are trying to correct is really the zoning map correction. So this project has already been approved. When we noticed that correction needed to be made, we initiated this rezoning. So again, looking at that right-hand map, the zoning map, now we are rezoning that GMU, that Greenfield mixed-use blue zoning district, into the PUD for that project that we've already approved. The only nuance to it is what was originally approved was a little bit bigger. Now Grand Valley, who owns that piece of property, is just selling the developer a little bit less property. It's actually 11 feet narrower. So the Planning Commission has already dealt with this. They've approved essentially the revised site plan and the revised PUD agreement. And again, like the last one, with the condition that City Council approve this rezoning, all of that other work has been done. So again, no comments. We haven't received any comments. Planning Commission has recommended unanimously to make this change.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions from council members? What is the pleasure of council in regard to this rezoning?
Move to accept.
Moved by Coronado. Is there support?
Support.
Support, that's Aaron's horse.
Support.
Thank you.
Support.
Any discussion from council members? Hard to tell sometimes with a mask on. Can't see
Yeah.
your lips moving. Any discussion from council members? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Corbin? Yes. Coronado?
Yes.
Ernstworst?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Now, the item that we've all been waiting for, proposed text amendments to section 39-2.05 and 39.207 of the Unified Development Ordinance.
Steve has been waiting to make this presentation, and you will recall that actually you've seen this presentation once already, because these ordinance are two-step processes. So I think Steve has the full set of slides that he went through with you once before, which I'm sure he's happy to do. But also, you actually need to take 3 separate actions on all of these. So perhaps some direction from council as to how you would like Steve to make this presentation all at once, and then you go through them, or to do them in 3 sets, or what is your pleasure? Steve probably could also do a kind of an executive summary version of each.
I don't know about the rest of council, but as somebody who has heard this presentation at least twice already, once at Planning Commission level, once here, I would recommend the executive summary version all at once, and then we can take 3 separate actions and 3 separate votes. Sound good? All right, getting a lot of nods. Yes. All right.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, try to get through these as quick as we can. So this first one, the front yard exception rule. So with the new UDO, what we realized was we used to have this front yard exception that allowed somebody to build on your block, essentially, as close as the closest home already was. With the new UDO, that was removed. We're suggesting putting some of this language back in, but it is slightly revised. So it would still allow for you to come closer than the required front yard setback, but you would do this averaging of the setbacks of the 2 adjacent properties. probably important to remember that this is only happening in 2 zoning districts, the LDR and the MDR. So prior to these changes, it was many more zoning districts, so it's a little bit less than what we had before. So we think this creates some flexibility in some of these neighborhoods where maybe we already have some of these non-conforming situations, would get you a little bit closer to compliance with the ordinance but still having some flexibility of recognizing that maybe we have some situations where they're not meeting those requirements. The proposed text amendments for section 5.11 is the building materials. So again, important to remember here, this applies to projects that require site plan approval. So this wouldn't apply to, somebody who's wanting to build a shed in their backyard. This would be more of the site plans that you would see for the commercial industrial sites. So what I have on the screen there in that upper left is the existing language that essentially prohibits sheet metal. What we put in the upper right-hand corner was staff's original version of allowing, or I should say just not prohibiting sheet metal, but allowing it to be considered as in the character of the area that we were looking at. When the Planning Commission held their public hearing and looked at this, what we found was that there was another section in this building materials portion of UDO, and that's what's on the bottom of the screen, as they felt like we could just eliminate that sheet metal prohibition section because that section that has it under there under design already had some of the language in there that said all building materials shall be, complement the adjacent area. So they just wanted to strike that language and just go with what was already in the ordinance. Felt like the proposal that staff came up with was simply redundant, but we're certainly comfortable with eliminating the prohibition of sheet metal. So this is where we get into what I guess we've been describing as the sort of corrections of UDO. So those first 2 were sort of the substantive changes. That's why we kind of broke them out. These, try to get through here quickly, but are thus what we've been calling the corrections or the reformatting of UDO that we've been working on. This first one, and what you'll see on these first several, is a series of changes where we're essentially putting into the ordinance what we already have, but in that table section, so make it a little more user-friendly, the front yard setback requirement for garages. So it's just adding that to the table. It's essentially in the areas where we have setbacks that are shorter than 16 feet in the front. If you put your garage up there, you've got to have at least 16 feet of a setback, so we don't have cars hanging over the sidewalks. And then you'll see in several of these areas where we add several what I call references to other parts of the ordinance. So where this one on the bottom where it says C 9.05 and at the top where it has 9.04, we're just using that for reference so people can find other parts of the ordinance that refer to these requirements. So that's really what you see on these first several slides that just address the same thing in the different zoning districts. This next one is for the Hope Overlay District in 2.21, where really we think this is just, again, a little more user-friendly, clarifying this ordinance language, removing the word rumors and using borders because we use that elsewhere in the ordinance, and then using a list in the applicability section rather than sort of that paragraph format. That next correction is really just a reference for the stormwater ordinance. We have that in other parts of our code elsewhere, so we just provided some more material to understand where that reference comes from. Section 5.06, the fire access, very similar. We're just providing some additional information to that reference. And then there's really just some renumbering or relettering going on to reformat that. and then providing some clarification for address numbers, and then providing, again, some more referencing. These next couple, again, landscaping requirements and lighting requirements that you have there are both just providing some additional reference sections, so you can find that elsewhere in the ordinance. Same thing, well, in 8.03 is the signs exempt from permits, so we're adding some language. Signs in conjunction with construction projects or site plan approval. That essentially allows you to do things like the coming soon type of signs. So adding the words site plan approval to that section. The 8.04, that one on the right-hand side there, is just, again, a reference, an addition of a reference for the PUD section for the signage area of the code. TNR. So 9.02 is some clarification for, in the TNR zone only, making sure that the requirement that vehicles must be parked on an approved durable surface is in there. And then you can see there's just some really renumbering going on there. We also have in our code already the definition of what an approved durable surface is. And then on that next page is really just a combination of two sentences together, so nothing changing there other than the format. On your left is the bicycle parking, just adding a reference section there. Principal dwelling units. You can see we strike out that definition and really add this list of characteristics to help define what that single dwelling unit is. I think this is the one where I added the clean version of the copy. It reads a little bit easier looking at it that way. And then providing some clarification on how to measure width, the minimum width of a building. Again, as you saw earlier, we have that 16-foot front yard setback. So this is doing some of the same thing with accessory structures. So again, if we had maybe a detached garage, you would have some of this same language in there. So that's that corrections that you see there under the setback section for accessory buildings. 9.06, accessory structures allowed and required setbacks. Really just striking out the word residential, adding in all zone districts. We have got accessory buildings and more than just the residential. The infill design, you can see there's just a typo of a misspelled word and then doing some reformatting as well. And then on the next page, for infill properties requiring site plan approval, just struck the second half of that sentence. It looked like it was just a fragment. And then adding the expiration of approval requirement, just explaining, you know, when you have a project approved, how long it's the approval is good for. That is the same language that we use elsewhere in the ordinance for things like site plan approval. So just inserting that so that is clear to the user. Almost. Almost. And then finally, we've got some corrections in the approving authority tables. You can see we're adding outdoor cafes and sidewalk cafes into the all zone districts table. And so later in these changes, you'll see that we're removing those same things in some of the specific zone districts where they were. So the process is still the same, just changing where we have it in the table themselves, providing some clarification for the UDO interpretation that the zoning administrator is the one who makes the final determination. That's really just a clarification, that's not a change. In in the zone districts LDR, CNR, MDR, TNR, HDR, and MHR. You can see we're making a couple changes there. We think these are really just clarifications or corrections, adding that the one residential building with 1 to 4 units, that's can be approved by the zoning administrator. But for more than one, we're adding the row in there that goes to the planning commission. Again, we think that is a correction, not a change. And then you can see elsewhere where we're removing the outdoor cafes and the sidewalk cafes from the specific districts that they were in. And then there's just a couple of corrections in the table of contents to add the word residential to a couple of the zoning districts where that wasn't put in there. That is everything.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Any questions from council?
Just one quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
You mentioned the LDR less than 4, more than 4, it would go to the building administrator for approval? But you mentioned LDR was one of those sections, did you not? I thought when you were rattling off, you said LDR. I could have been wrong. I didn't have it up on the screen's up there, but it's hard to see.
Yeah, because the question is, there wouldn't be 4 in LDR.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I caught that. I heard you say LDR, and you rattled off a number of zones. So just point of clarification before I move forward.
So it is for more than one residential building with 1 to 4 units, would go to the planning commission for approval in LDR, CNR, MDR, TNR, HDR, and MHR.
But it's not permitted in LDR, or at least we've never had it approved for LDR.
So the way that it's worded right now is that's all of that is permitted right now.
Don't. Well,
Yeah,
guess
I know exactly what you're talking about, Scott, and I think I agree with you. I'm guessing that may be in the correction. I know I see Tricia's looking quickly at the ordinance language. I agree with you. We want to make sure that we're not approving 4 units or more than 4 units in LDR. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I want to make sure that we're not doing that. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So more than 4 units. You're right. That's HDR only, but it was the 1 to 4 that's permitted in there now, at least as I'm.
Perfect. So it would have to be allowed in the zone district first, and then we go to the approving authorities table to see who makes the decision. So the residential zone districts are all together under one table, but in LDR, only single-family homes are permitted.
So what you're saying is it went to the building administrator, let's say, just as an application, it would be denied automatically because it's, okay, thank you.
Not allowed in the zone district. So the chart applies for all of those things, but they first have to be allowed in that zone district to be approved by whichever authority has approval.
Thanks for making that clarification, Scott. Any other questions from council members? Wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Let's take these in order. First is item 10C, proposed text amendments to section 39-2.05 and 39-2.07 to the Unified Development Ordinance. This is the closest house rule item. What is the pleasure of council?
Move
Move.
that we, oops, who's going?
Do we have a motion down here? Was that?
Trying.
You're trying? You know what? I didn't even recognize your
Right.
voice down there. You're so deep. Yes.
I know, it's,
Oh, yes.
What?
Oh, I apologize. We'll do that first. I will now open the public hearing in regard to item 10C, the closest house rule. Is there anyone who would like to speak to council on this specific item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Now, what is the pleasure of council, Mr. Vreeman?
move to approve 39-205 and 39-207.
Great. Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Coronado?
Yes.
Aaronshorst?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Vreeman?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Corbin? Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Next item, item 10D, proposed text amendment to section 39-5.11 of the Unified Development Ordinance. This is in regard to building materials. Open the public hearing in regard to this one. Is there anyone who would like to address council in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to approve 39-5.11.
All right, moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. We'll get you on the next one. Any discussion from council members? All those, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Vreeman,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Corbin, Coronado,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, item 10E, proposed text amendments to various sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Open this for public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to address council on any one of the myriad of text amendments, corrections, formatting, stylistic items that Mr. Peterson so eloquently described to us? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to accept Planning Commission proposed text amendments to various sections of the Unified Development Ordinance.
Moved by Coronado. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Raymond. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Vreeman,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Corbin, Coronado,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is 12E 6.1, gifts. Kathy, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gift. Parks and Recreation, Van Rolte Dog Park, John A. Vandenbosch Company, $1,000. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Thank you, Kathy. What is the pleasure of council in regard to gifts?
Move to approve with appreciation.
Moved by Byrd. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, 12E 6.2, award bid for construction management services for the replacement of the Waverly Road Fire Station and the renovation of the Collin Park Fire Station. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to, the rumors that all of these UDO text amendments is basically just the training program for our new senior planner are not true, but it's helped. He's taken a crash course in all of this, right? We are very excited tonight to talk about moving forward with our fire stations. And our excellent Assistant City Manager, Matt Van Dyken, is going to take you through that process. And I trust that he's also going to introduce you to the team members that have been very involved with the recommendations that come before you tonight. So Matt, take it away.
Evening, Matt.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. It's good to be here this evening. Keith alluded to the team. I can't thank the team that's seated behind me. We're going to introduce them a little bit later, but they not only have been integral up to this point, but they're going to be integral in this project moving forward to completion. So tonight we're going to take a little walk down memory lane. We're going to go through some timelines and goals, and then you'll finally have our recommendations on the next, actually, 2 items on your agenda. So with that, we'll talk about the fire station investments. We have 2 stations in the city of Holland. The first station is a station located on Waverly Road. This station was built in 1971. That is Mayor Bossman, who has his name on the sign out front for the new renovation. And Mayor Bossman served from 1961 to 1971. As you can see there, the station went under a fairly unexpected renovation in 1973, and has served the city for the time past that, the 48 years since. So that's the Waverly Road station. The Collin Park station was also built in the 70s. This was built in 1978 at a cost of, I believe it was $632,000.
No. Thank you, though. Thank you, though.
So I think it's a pretty clear indication by the, the attire of some of the folks in those dedications and groundbreakings. That happens to be Mayor Lou Hallisey in that our fire stations have served us for a long time and are probably due to be renovated. Lots has changed since the 1970s, including our city limits. So if you look at the gray in this map, that was the original portion of the city of Holland. The kind of reddish maroon rust color in the middle was in the 60s, and the remainder were in, the 50s, and the remainder were in the 90s and 2000s. So about 2,000 acres, mostly on our south, kind of eastish edge of the very irregularly shaped city. So we've expanded the boundaries quite a bit since the 50s. And that brings us to the kind of the fire department that we have today. You can say interactions with the communities, the firefighters are out cooling kids off. I believe that's the Junior Police Academy, photo in the upper right. And then just kind of the training opportunities that they have, so they serve the city's citizens the best, ice rescue, some training up, looks like maybe confined space up on the top, and then participating in a parade. So the timeline that we're looking at for some of these adjustments, where we've been, kind of where we're going, flip through that. Programming. So I think you all remember we partnered with KZF and GMB to look at what do we need in the stations, what does the modern fire service need. We've identified that, and we actually included that in the request for proposals for both the contracts. We've surveyed the property, we've done soil borings at Waverly Road, and we've issued RFPs for both the stations. That includes, both RFPs include the renovation of the Collin Park station and the replacement of the Waverly Road station. We'll look a little bit more about what those look like in a little bit. And then if council approves both those contracts this evening, February 2, we will review the programming. We'll go through a schematic design, a detailed design, and then we will have actual very hard estimates of what this is going to cost. Preliminary estimates, and again, these are preliminary estimates based on programming, put the cost to do the renovation and the replacement both together, combined cost of $10 to $15 million. Again, those need to be reviewed. We need to know exactly what we're building. Right now, we just know rooms and places. We need to know finishes. We need to know exterior layouts. We need to know what all this actually really truly looks like. We had discussed geothermal as an option for especially the Waverly Road station. So that will add a cost and have a benefit, and we'll come back to you with that. Then with your approval, we'll actually bond for the project. So Lynn has already contacted our bond counsel. They're very well aware of what we're doing and are continuing to provide us with advice before we go out to actually secure the money to pay for those buildings. Tim Vogley beat into my head over and over and over again, and Keith is probably smiling under his mask, that Van Dyken is Dutch, and we're very frugal, and I was always taught that debt is bad. Debt is bad, debt is bad, you never want to have debt. And Tim would always say to me, no, Matt, debt is okay. Debt is the way that the people that are going to use the facilities are actually the ones that will pay for the facilities. So as we talk through this and we talk about bond, I always have that little nugget of Tim that will stick with me for the rest of my career, that, hey, this is not a bad thing. It's a way for the people that use that infrastructure to actually pay for it. Then we'll bid the project. We may need to bid this at different points. Steel, roofing are 40 to 50 weeks out. So there is an opportunity there to work with that CM and architect to produce some maybe less detailed specifications, but get that steel for the building coming, get the roofing for the building on its way, so that when we're ready for it, the building isn't sitting there waiting for us for some of that material. You will approve those bids, and whatever the timing is that comes into you, you'll be able to see that. We'll be very transparent with what has come in. And if you approve those bids, we will begin construction, and then we'll move in to the new facilities.
Those last two seem so easy.
Those are the easy parts. But what are we really looking to do in some of the design? And firefighter safety is the biggest one in my mind. So we learned a lot through this process. We learned a lot through the programming process. We learned a lot through the interview process. But there's an idea of kind of hot and cold zones. So our firefighters go out on a call. Maybe it's a fire call and they've got, chemical contaminants. Maybe it's a medical call and they've gotten biohazard type of contaminants. Right now, there's not a separation between where they live in the fire station, because they live in that fire station, and where they maybe need to wash their gear or wash their clothing. So safety is a big thing. Cancer is a big thing in firefighters, right? And that's part of what the environment that they're put in. We can do things to help them decontaminate, get that stuff out of off their clothes, so that they're not carrying that into where they're sleeping and living. Looking at fire station design best practices, we'll talk about the recommended architecture and engineering firm, but that firm actually impressed us a lot, because me especially, they talked about little things, right? So there's hot and cold zones and these big ideas and big giant fire trucks, but they said you need to pay attention to the hinges in the cabinets in your kitchen, because firefighters want to talk when they're making their food, right? So they'll open that door and they'll lean on it. So if you have a standard hinge, you're going to be replacing those doors all the time. And they said in the room that you're going to have your turnout gear in, you need to make sure your door frames are steel and not aluminum, because when they walk back in from either a fire or from outside, they're going to take their duty boot and kick that door jamb. And if it's a steel door jamb, it can stand up to it. So little things like that, those best practices that we can design in the buildings that weren't there in the 70s. Additional storage, we talked about that in the past, a large kind of pre-manufactured storage facility on the Waverly Road site to store not only fire apparatus, boats in the wintertime, but public safety bikes. If we've got a float, if we've got things like that, we always need space to store things inside, and that would be included. We'd update the training room. The training right now is a triangle at Collin Park. We'd build a larger training facility and training room, especially over on Waverly Road. We'd maximize the use of the truck base. We're going to have some need. There'd be additional sleeping quarters that would be integrated within that Waverly Road station. Gender neutral restrooms and showers, so that no matter who is showing up for work that day, they can lock a door to use the restroom or take a shower, and it's them in that facility. A training building, reserving space for a burn building or whatever those guys might need to increase their training. There's an exit at Collin Park that makes it hard on our vehicles when we pull out. The big ladder trucks are long, and that transition to the road we want to address as part of this project. Updated fitness, an actual really halfway decent fitness facility at both. Again, they live there. They're on 48-hour shifts. Their only opportunity to work out is going to be at that facility. Move the exit on Waverly to the north. Right now, that's really close to that intersection of 32nd and Waverly and can cause issues coming out. That would move north. We'll look at a site plan in just a little bit. And then just hundreds of the details, right? The hinges, the metal door frames, the steel door frames. I'm going to speak for the group, the interview team, feel that especially that architecture and engineering group is going to know those details. If you read the report, and I'm sure you did, you'll see where they speak firefighter, and that became evident. This is a group out of Texas that came up, and they spoke the language that those guys speak, and I'm confident that that's going to transfer to a better facility that's really going to last, if we look at what the others did, almost 50 years for both those facilities. Actually, over 50 years for the one, not quite one for the other. So that's the Collin Park station. It's a little hard to see. This is kind of a smaller graphic, but redoing the offices, redoing the sleeping quarters and the kitchen, perhaps do some reconfiguration there. This is all going to be reviewed, right? We've got preliminary programming. We're going to go back and take a look at it. Does this make sense? Do we need to move things around? Do we need to keep that truck bay full? What are we going to need to adapt to in 25 years, 5 years, or 40 years that we need to build into the station? And then there's the Waverly Road kind of proposed site plan. It probably won't wind up exactly like this, but I think it'll be some semblance of this. We've got that large building on the east side. The new station moves to the north, has 4 truck bays. And then we have a site reserved in the northeast corner for potential future building that's not included in the scope of this project. So the interview team, Chief Matt Messer, Captain Chris Tinney, Lieutenant Dan DeVisser, and Training Officer David Wolfus. We met with each of the selected folks. We had a really good response. Selection was based off their relative experience, their project approach, their fit with the city. That's going to be very important. And then finally, the cost. Our recommended actions to you in 2 different actions tonight would be approve the contract with GDK Construction for the construction management services, and approval of the contract with Integrated Architecture / BRW for the architectural and engineering services. Both of those contracts would carry us from this point in our timeline, February 2, until the completion of the project. You can see here, and I don't know how far you're going to want me to get into the details of the percentages and general conditions and that kind of thing. I will say that we interviewed Carbon 6, which was the potential low bidder overall for the project. We are not recommending Carbon 6 to you. Carbon 6 has only been in existence as a company for about a year. We didn't feel that they had experience with a project of the scope and scale that we're talking about with both of these renovations. We did interview OAK, GDK, and Lakewood, all very, very reputable firms, but we were most impressed by the team from GDK. Their cost is in line with the other bidders. We've got actually kind of a matrix here that shows a 15-month project versus a 20-month project and what the costs are for that. And it goes back and forth. I can't give you a statement here today that I know exactly what the final ultimate cost of our construction manager is going to be, because I don't know what the final construction cost of our project is going to be. So 3.4%, which is what GDK has proposed to us, changes between $10 million and $15 million. But what doesn't change is that percentage. So there's a cost in here, and it's in your report. There's a cost in here for that percentage, a cost for the site supervision and construction management on a weekly basis, and then about $24,000 worth of pre-construction services. You may ask, well, Matt, why are we bringing in a construction manager right now? Don't we bring that construction manager in once all the schematic design and detailed design and packages are ready to go out to bid, right? Some projects are done that way. We feel very strongly that having a team that includes the architect, the construction manager, and our staff, all of us, included in that process to move that design forward, speaks to what Councilmember Hoekstra said earlier. We're going to do this, and we're going to do it right. We're not, as we told everyone in the interviews, we're not going to build a Taj Mahal, but we're going to build a building that we can all be proud of and is done right and serves the folks well that are going to live in that facility. So I know I'm going probably a little bit faster here, but when you look at GDK's experience, they built, and this is very limited, I think we're all pretty familiar with the buildings right down here on 8th Street in the corner of 9th and River. They also built the Zeeland Township Fire Station, obviously the Civic Center, and then a number of school projects going back for years. For architectural engineering, and if you have questions, I think if you let me kind of get through this, we'll be happy to answer them. But for the architectural and engineering services, it's a little bit easier of a cost comparison, right? We've given them the programming, we've given them the building assessment at Collin Park. We've given them as much information as we possibly can, surveys, soil borings, and they came back with a proposal. So we interviewed GMB KZF, Tower Pinkster, and Integrated Architecture. And Integrated, again, was extremely impressive. That team, the BRW is actually located in Texas. So it was a little bit of a shock for them to come up to Holland, Michigan in the wintertime. But they came up. We had a great interview. We were very impressed with their team. They have built, I think it's over 300 specifically fire stations, mainly in Texas, but a number across the country. We think the expertise that they bring, along with the expertise of our staff, really will give us a very high quality project in the end. You can see some of their, on the screen there, some of their projects. This is very limited number. We've got a book upstairs of their full portfolio if you're ever interested in it. I think Keith has had an opportunity to review that a little bit. But yeah, so our recommendations to you as City Council in 2 separate actions tonight would be the approval of the construction management contract and the approval of the architectural and engineering services contract. I think that, no, I like this. This is one of my favorite pictures, so I'll end it there.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Questions from council? Scott?
The daily contract fee, or weekly, excuse me, that'll
Yep.
begin at the early stages of the planning process, but do we know how long it's, I don't know that I saw a timeline of how long it's gonna take, 1.5 years, 2 years? What's the estimated length of time in from consulting to the time to move in?
So that, a lot of that's gonna depend on us, right? And we asked for proposed timelines. We got back timelines that were 12, 15, 20 months. And we're gonna fall sometime between that. But we have to make a decision as a city, and that decision primarily is gonna be made by Chief Messier and Captain Tinney behind me on whether or not we actually occupy the Collin Park Station during renovation, or if we move out completely. So, and again, that site supervision doesn't start until we start construction. There's that pre-construction services portion of it, and then the site supervision. So we don't start paying a weekly fee to Dustin and GDK if they're not.
Okay, that's why I'm clarifying.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Lynn?
My question kind of went out of my head, so I'll try to remember it. But I did want to say, Nikki and I had an opportunity to tour the Collin Park facility with Lieutenant Visitor, and really, this is really exciting because it clearly needs to happen, and they're doing such great work over there, and it's helpful to have visited it to see the challenges that they face right now based on the way that it's constructed. So looking forward to seeing this, come to fruition. So thanks for all that work.
Nikki, did you have something to add?
Well, it was somewhat answered with the other question. So you don't know the stages if you'll move out. Are you going to start both stations at the same time?
That's gonna all come out of that.
Things, okay.
Okay, team, let's get the team together. We gotta have our architect, our construction manager, and we have to understand and make decisions. Okay, based on the input of that group, there's gonna be if we do choose to stay out of there or stay in there during construction, there's a cost to that. And it's not gonna be a small cost. So we need to be able to come through and make those timeline kind of decisions of, okay, we've got the project bid out or ready to go to bid, this is how it's gonna work, and we'll come back to you and explain how that's all gonna happen.
And you'll probably have to communicate with other fire departments at the same time? I mean, is there ever a concern?
In discussions I've had with Chief Master and both Captain Tinney, I think there will be a minimal impact on their services. We have a number of different scenarios that we've discussed on how this can all work, including one that maybe is rising a little bit to the top where, hey, we start the Waverly Road expansion or new facility at Waverly. Once that's complete, we move out of Collin Park and run out of both of those stations at Waverly Road. Perhaps we even move people at high volume times back into different locations. But that's an operational issue that I'm confident that those two guys and the two folks up there with them are going to figure out.
Good, thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, not so much a question. I couldn't help but think as you were explaining all of this, hearkening back to the Civic Center, the complexities of that and seeing how this is going to be a pretty complex, fairly complex project as well. I just couldn't help feel a great deal of confidence, first of all, with a guy who recognized the value of polished concrete over Italian tile or whatever the heck we were going to put in there. Saved us a lot of money and it looks great. That sort of thing, combined with the background of you folks, it's not your first rodeo. You know what needs to be there and you recognize value in who's going to provide these services. I just feel a great deal of trust and confidence in what you all are bringing to the table, and looking forward to getting this done. So thanks for all your work and input, and being professionals.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And we're going to make this a lot less complex than the Civic Center.
Let's hope so. That would be a good goal.
Quincy.
A few things. It's pretty awesome to see us moving in this direction with all the progress that Holland has made. It's nice to see our public servants get access, not access, I guess, where we come behind them to improve their work environment. So this is pretty exciting for me to see this happening. A couple of things. The architectural and engineering company out of Texas. You said they build a lot of buildings in Texas. My question is, how does that translate to winter? I know construction is totally different in the south or in warmer climates than it is in colder climates, so I guess help me understand.
I'm actually really glad you asked that question because I should have touched on that. Integrated Architecture is going to be the architect of record, and they're out of Grand Rapids.
Okay.
They are partnering with Holland Engineering to be their civil engineer. So Texas expertise,
yep.
Understanding that it doesn't snow there very often, combined with local architect, combined with even more local civil engineer.
Okay.
So there's a whole team there that's coming forward to help this project move forward.
Great. So to elaborate a little bit about what Dave said on the Civic Center, great project, loved it. In the end, we had to cut some things, right? And looking back at that some years afterwards, we were like, man, maybe we should have kept this and we should have kept that. For instance, kitchen could have been bigger, just a couple of things, and then also lighting on the stage. You know, you can't see into the future, right? But I guess I'm wanting you guys and the whole team to look at these things, take some lessons from the Civic Center, because to do it on the front end, it's always easy. Well, it's a lot easier, I should say. Not always easy, but easier. So that would be something that I would like to see, is those things that we might cut. Do we really want to cut those? Do those really make an impact years down the road? So
I want to be a little careful how I answer this, but.
Well, do you understand where I'm coming
from? Oh, I'm very, very clear where you're coming from, Councilman Byrd. However, that project budget was established by the city council, and we were instructed to make the project fit within the budget and not necessarily what items we were going to keep or we were going to remove from the project. So I think actually Dustin, as you know, was a project manager, and there was a lot of time that we spent at the Civic Center looking at plans and made 500 different decisions on what we could move and what we couldn't do. We will be coming back to you with a plan, a set of plans to what to build and what that is going to cost. And then it'll be up to council to say, yep, that sounds good. But what we will present to you will include all the elements that we think need to be in those stations.
Okay.
Any other comments? Thank you, Matt. Thank you, and thanks to the team as well for all of the work that you've done, and I know that's coming. As Councilmember Hoekstra said earlier, we do things right. You know, we're not going to build the Taj Mahal, but we're going to make sure that we build something that's solid, something that's functional, something that is an enjoyable place to live in. In my mind, one of the most important things that we do is public safety, and we need to make sure that we provide the tools and the environment, the best tools environment that we can for our public safety officers, so that they can do their jobs well. And I it amazes me, but I get excited about the fact that you guys are thinking about the hinges on the kitchen cabinets. I really do. I love that level of thought that's going into this. So appreciate that. With that, council, we've got two different motions that we have here. First is in regard to item 12E 6.2 for construction management services. What's the pleasure of council?
Motion approved. 12.
Yep.
Ready?
Yep.
12E.
12E 6.2. Yep.
12E 6.2, award bid for construction management services for replacement of a Waverly Road Fire Station and renovation of the Collin Park Fire Station.
Yeah. Moved by Corbin. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd, just under the wire. Any discussion from council members? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Coronado,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And then pleasure of council in regard to item 12E 6.3.
Motion to approve 12.E.6.3, award bid for architectural and engineering services for the replacement of the Waverly Fire Station and renovation of the Collin Park Fire Station.
Moved by Corbin. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Coronado,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're up to, it is 7:46. We're up to item number 13, communications from the city manager. Mr. Van Beek.
Thanks for pointing out what time it is, Mr. Mayor. Big night, exciting night, a lot of fun things that we're working on. I do have a few comments and items this evening. First, continue to have conversations about making sure that to the best of our ability, we're sharing information out in the community as to what we're doing. And we just had another great example where the citizen e-newsletter went out. So whether it be videos, social media, e-newsletter, and more, we're certainly doing that. And there was the request, and just to let you know, to anticipate it, at the February 23 study session, we are planning to have our team come in and just kind of go through our website and various elements so they can show to you an easy to use way to how to navigate that and sign up for some of those automatic notifications. And then you can be our ambassadors, also spreading that out to your family and friends and constituents. So we appreciate that. Also, we're in the midst of budget preparation currently. So Lynn and I are spending, I think she went home because she was tired. Lynn and I are spending a lot of time together, multiple meetings a day for multiple hours for a good solid 2 weeks or more. And going through that process, so we're looking forward to that. One of the things in particular that we're adding this year, and you can mark this down where we're targeting the study session on March 9, is you've heard a lot of discussion in past years about Matt Van Dyken doing the 50-year capital improvement plan. And what Lynn has done now is matching that with a long-term financial analysis. And you start putting those elements together, and then we're getting, we've always had a handle on, but we're really getting a handle on kind of like what's on the agenda and priorities of what we want to provide to the community, certainly led by the current services that we provide so we can continue to provide those services, that we can continue to grow into the services that we need to maintain service levels, but then also to provide for maintaining the infrastructure that we have, council members Corbin and Byrd in particular, who in the spirit of Mike Trethewey, I said that. And then absolutely taking a look at the requirements of the things that we want to add into our system and what that's going to cost. So Lynn has been doing a fantastic job of putting all that together. And on March 9, before we do our otherwise budget update, it seems really appropriate to spend some targeted time, not on the entire budget, but just that long-term financial analysis. And there's going to be different parts of that discussion that we expect to have that night also, maybe some good news about some support that we get from the community. Absolutely taking a look at our American Rescue Plan Act funds and other elements that are priorities of yours that have passed on to us as it relates to broadband and some of those types of things. So what we're looking to do is use that long-term analysis and presentation to really be a really good space to have some of those other discussions. So a lot of work going on in preparing that. Specifically, we're targeting March 9. Now with some of that, we've been a little busy, and right now I would say we don't have anything ripe, if that's the right word, for study session next week. We don't have a project that's kind of waiting for review or anything. So we are at this point not recommending and not planning a study session next week. And maybe with all the things that we have on the near horizon and just making you work on Saturdays and anything, maybe you'll take that as a pleasant thank you. But that is what we're planning. Things seem to always come up these days, so I guess stay tuned, but otherwise it looks like you might have a week off next Wednesday. Additionally, I know that there was some press coverage earlier this week, and there probably will be a little bit more about the Waterfront Holland process, just one more project that we're going through and managing right now. Really same news and timeline as the last time that we did a thorough presentation for all of you, in that you authorized us to continue to work with our consultants, that at that point we had done a request for qualification stage, and we qualified 3 firms to go ahead and then do the additional work and submit proposals for an RFP stage. And when we did that, we said when those proposals are due, we will need to take several months to not only do an evaluation of the proposals that come in as they match up to that lengthy and quality and worthwhile process in the community of Waterfront Holland, where we talked about the vision for our waterfront and the guiding principles. And we had some great work done that basically set the standard for what we're looking to have. We absolutely want to hold up the proposal to that, but we also, with our consultants' leadership really in that space, is take a look at any proposals that come in as far as the financial viability and the specific, if you would, the give and take of the proposal and what they'd be paying and what be coming back and what public investments would need to be made. So I'm sure you heard, because this was communicated to you, but in the end, we only had one of those 3 qualified firms that submitted a proposal, and that was GDK. And their idea continues to be not to develop at the JDY site, but to do what I think we've commonly referred to in the community and certainly in Waterfront Holland as the land swap, where basically moving another user to the JDY site and then using that vacated space for development. So there was some information that you have that also went out in a press release on Monday. And we are sticking to plan, which is we will be taking, which we suspect will take several months at the least, to do all of that work that I just described. And when we're at the conclusion of that, then we will absolutely come back with what we think is a complete set of information, and we'll be reviewing that with all of you. I don't suspect, because that's not our practice, right? It's not like we'd come to you in a meeting and say we want a decision that night. We will definitely do that in a deliberative process, so that we'll present information to you. And we tend to do that with the recommendations, right? But we'll give you time definitely to digest that information and then proceed with any next steps. I always like to say and remind the community that with this process, any sale of waterfront property in the city charter requires a vote of the people. So in the end, no matter what process staff goes through and then ultimately goes through with all of you, anything would ultimately require a vote of the people. So we are committed not to a speedy process here. We're committed to the correct process. And even this process, just because we have a proposal in front of us and maybe we don't have multiple, but we have one, it doesn't mean we need to take action because we have this proposal. So that's part of our evaluation too, to make sure that it meets what it is that we're looking for. So just want to take a little bit extra time to thoroughly, hopefully, describe that process to you, and that where we are in the timeline, we're on target with the timeline that we communicated to you, and we'll be coming back to you on that. And then finally, just for myself, I don't think this is private information, so I feel comfortable in saying this, but just for those that may not know, just want to pass on behalf of myself and the city staff, our condolences to Tim Vreeman, and in particular his wife, in the passing this past week, and of mother. Amy's mom. For a moment I was like, was it Amy's mom or dad? But it was mom. So just for your information, and definitely thinking and keep upholding you in this time, and Amy, and please pass that on. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Keith. I just have one item. In our daily work or weekly work here as council members, we spend a lot of time thinking about policy, talking about policy. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity when putting together the mayor's monthly message video. The subject was, where do your tax dollars go? And it gave me the opportunity to take a look, to step back and go, where do we see that in the community? And for me, it was a great exercise, and continues to be a great exercise in being very deliberate about noticing our city staff out around the community. And once I started doing that, I see city staff everywhere. I have been amazed at the number of city vehicles that I pass in any trip that I take anywhere. The BPW trucks that I see out working, our police vehicles, our fire vehicles, lately our snowplow vehicles. And I try to wave every chance I can, and I'm going to encourage council members to be deliberate about that as well, because it's a really wonderful experience. And I want to recommend that to members of the public as well. If you want to see some incredible people doing incredible work, serving all of us every single day, just step back, and be very deliberate about noticing what's going on in the community, because there's a lot of good stuff going on. And that's all that I have. Any communications from council members? Yeah, go ahead, Quince.
I'm going to take a couple of minutes. February is a very special month for me for a few different reasons. One is it's Valentine's Day. I get to show the love of my life, take a day and celebrate her. And then also I celebrate my girls. I buy them roses for what year they are in school. And I try to set the bar very, very high for when that man comes into their life. Then both of my boys were born in February, 3 days apart, actually. Not 3 days apart, but their birthdays are 3 days apart. Let me clarify that. Yeah. Then also, as Black man, February holds a special meaning in my heart for Black History Month. Last year I did this, and I shared some inventors, Black inventors in our country who have enhanced our lives, and I'd like to do that again today. We think about the home security system. That was co-invented by a nurse named Mary Van Britten Brown in 1966. She was a single mom who lived in Queens, New York. And from there, you could imagine why she probably invented that. Sometimes New York is known as a crime-ridden state, different parts of it. The three-light traffic, or the three-light traffic signal. Before Garrett Morgan invented the yellow light, it was only two lights. It was red and green. He's from Cleveland, Ohio. In 1923, he seen a very horrific accident which led him to implement that. And now we have three lights. And a yield sometimes means go faster for some people. But he's one person who invented that. The refrigerated truck was invented in 1940 by a gentleman named Frederick McKinley Jones. He co-founded the U.S. Thermal Control Company, which today we know as Thermo King. During the World War III he had this, and this helped the United States Army by preserving food, blood, and supplies as well. So when we look back at, those are things that we don't hear about in wars, right? Those are the tangible things that help us win wars. You can't help soldiers who have been on the field, who have been hurt, if you don't have the blood or the food. So those are big items. And then the carbon light bulb filament. We think of Thomas Edison as the person who invented the light bulb, and he did. But Lewis Lattimore in 1881 invented the filament that went into the light bulb, which allowed the light bulb to last longer. So I just wanted to share some of that with you, and again, it's really dear and near to my heart, so I just wanted to share.
Quincy, who was it that came up with the idea for the yellow light? What was that inventor's name?
Garrett Morgan.
Garrett Morgan. I'm going to remember that every time we do public comment. So thank you for that. The Morgan light, the Garrett Morgan light. You got 1 minute left. Mr. Corbin. Yeah, go ahead, Belinda.
I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to the Walk for Warmth Saturday at 8:30, City on a Hill. Community Action House raising money for people in our community. And then 210, the Alliance ACH-EH, the Heart to Heart, which is their biggest fundraiser. So yeah, I think Esther and her department, Human Relations, will be there. And then also, I wanted to applaud Hope College Theater Department. They are bringing their first Native Gardens Latinx playwright, and it is going to be mainly Hispanics, Latinos in that play. So 2/18 is opening night, and it's very funny because it's Pablo and Tanya Del Valle. They buy a fixer-upper, but they're next to some, just trying to live the American dream, but they're next door to an empty nester company, and they're kind of going at odds. But it just kind of reminds us that we all have the same dream to belong and fit in and take care of our families. So I encourage you to attend that. And I think that's all I got. So it's an honor and pleasure to be here with you, and drive safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn.
Yeah, just a couple things. I did have an opportunity to read Lynn's popular annual financial report, and really great job. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, it's really, really good. Easy read, and now I understand completely the budget of the City of Holland. So, and I also wanted to mention that I was able to attend the Public Art Advisory Committee a couple of weeks ago. I'm always just really impressed with the enthusiasm with which community members attend and participate in those committees. This group is really enthusiastic about public art, and just wanted to remind everybody about the Art Around Holland website. It's terrific. It's really been, you know, they've really honed it, and it works really nicely, and they've got, it's mobile friendly as well, so I would just encourage you to, I think it's artaroundholland.com. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else? Mr. Corbin?
If no one else has it. So I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, or at least recommendation. So you're recommending that we don't have a study session next week, is that what I'm hearing? But we do have some board maintenance to take care of. I was wondering what your thoughts were about still having a study session next week where we can review our board rules. Maybe look into, or having the committee that is supposed to nominate committees, maybe give us an update on where we're at with that committee process. And then also maybe some proclamation guidelines, you know, how we might, you know, address the proclamation process and submitting up these proclamations. But as CGO, I do need some guidance from each and every one of you on where we're going with these board rules and how you want them implemented. So just food for thought, and want to get some input from each and every one of you.
I would be happy to attend that meeting.
Oh, I would too.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
And maybe while we're at it, we can review the vision for Holland that we talked about at the advance, if that committee wants to reconvene.
Yeah. My recommendation, Scott, would be that that we as council are the ones that are responsible for the content of that meeting, because I think staff's got a lot going on with different projects, and this is our work.
That's exactly why I'm directing it to the board at the moment.
Good.
To see what they would like. I know we have to review our bylaws. We should, or not our bylaws, board rules. We should probably review those first and foremost and get that out of the way. And then anything following, certainly if we have time, we can walk through that list of things that you guys are mentioning at the moment. But
Okay.
From a prioritization, I think we need to start there.
Okay. You and I want to put together the agenda with me on that?
Sure.
All right.
If anybody else thinks there's another priority that we should be addressing, please speak up now. But.
Yep.
I agree with you. I don't have any issues with it. The one thing I do not want to talk about, and I want to be 100% clear, is the mission statement. I think when we start talking about something in the double digits, I think we need to leave it alone. So I want to be absolutely 100% clear. I do not want to talk about the mission statement again.
All right.
Being the new person, I'm just curious about that statement, and yeah. But no, I agree. Being the freshman here, I'd like to definitely find out rules and what we need to review for sure.
We've talked about the mission statement multiple times, and I'm done talking about it.
Well, let's plan on having a meeting next week. We can, if there are another issue that you'd like to maybe have on that agenda. Otherwise, we can discuss the individual items at the meeting rather than here at this point, because again, with the idea of no surprises for council members, I don't think it's a great idea for us to discuss individual items at this point. But we can discuss it then. But Dave, I don't want to cut you off, even though I just did.
So you're suggesting that there would be a bullet point that would say other business?
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
All right. Great. Okay. Anyone else? Otherwise, there's just one more motion that I would entertain. Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.